Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. It's been a productive couple of days, lots of knowledge sharing, thought leaderships, insights, and hopefully today's presentation is also going to be that for you as well. In an era where technology drives customer engagement, the role of the business and CRM leaders is going to be more pivotal than ever. Our goal today is to share some actionable strategies for designing high-performing teams, understanding and tackling common problems and challenges, and leveraging the technology to be an enabler rather than a replacement for human expertise. To introduce ourselves, I'm Punal, Director of Professional Services across the EMEA region, and with me I've got Sophie, who's Director of Professional Services within the Americas. And our team support to strategize and accelerate what their clients want with their customers. Today we're excited to discuss with you CRM team opportunities, how to structure, align, and empower teams to drive customer engagement in the tech-driven world. So let's dive in.
Great. So we'd like to start this session with some really interesting numbers. So these numbers are from a Deloitte survey that was done a couple of years ago, focused around high-impact organization design. So 70% of those companies that participated in this survey had recently undertaken a org transformation in the 18 months leading to this study. What's also really interesting was the fact that more than 50 of them actually engage in frequent redesign efforts in order to keep up with the rapid pace of change in the business environment that they're operating in. So why is this important? Well, for those that scored high on org design maturity, they have a 23% revenue premium over a 3-year period. They're also twice more likely to achieve high customer satisfaction compared to those companies that scored low. So we're going to make you do a little bit of participation here. You can take out your phone and scan the QR code and put in the number that you see on the screen. And the question here is, do you consider yourselves to be a customer-centric organization? So we'll give you a minute to do that.
Good participation. No one selected no, right? Or have they? There we go. Oh, it's a
All right.
good race.
It's tight race, but it looks like we're about 50-50 split. Slight majority of us saying we're still working on it, and then a minority of us are saying, wait, it's changing, hold on. All right, it's about even. Half of us say yes, we're customer-centric. Half of us are still working on it. So now this is really interesting. Why? Because according to Capgemini, which you may know them as a consulting company that's based in the US, they had found that 75% of organizations consider themselves to be customer-centric. But when that same question was directed at customers, only 30% agree with the statement. So there's a disconnect here. We all want to be customer-centric. We all claim to put the customer at the forefront of everything we do so that we can drive better loyalty, retention, increase revenue. But the question here is, what does it actually mean to be customer-centric in this day and age?
So in many organizations, evolving strategies require teams that can be flexible and adaptable to deliver value, that is. I've worked for and with many companies over the last decade and plus, where strategies have changed, whether it be from a short term of 12 months or from a 1 to 3 year plus. And what I've seen and experienced is that the positive trends in growth are usually driven by teams that are high impact, and they help drive towards a common goal and objectives that are set. So actually, therefore, we should be thinking about identifying the right structure to complement the right strategy, and therefore, there should be high priority on our list. So today we'll explore the makings of a great CRM operating model and organization design. We'll cover and understand the key challenges CRM teams face in a digital-first landscape, and also the scalable opportunities that will overcome them. We'll explore the practical frameworks for building and refining high-performing CRM teams as well, and learn how human interactions can complement technology as an enabler, enhancing team collaboration and impact. So let's move on to these common challenges.
Right. So When we talk about common challenges that our CRM organization sees on a day-to-day basis, first we can look at it from a structure and process standpoint. And we've got three very frequently encountered examples here. Number one, disjointed process. A real-world example of this can just be, you have your marketing and sales teams, and they're working with different customer data sets because they're not really operating in a way that's truly integrated, right? Or it could also be that they're being held to very different KPIs and objectives at the end of the day. Another example here of a common challenge is the inaccessibility of data and insights. So this could either be a case where you don't have the right resources and tools in place to provide self-service access to your teams to data in real time so that they have visibility into how the business is performing. Or it could be a case where you have an in-house analytics team that's producing insights, but those insights are not really relevant or actionable because they lack a solid understanding of the priorities and objectives of the business. A third example here is just collaboration barriers, which can happen in many forms within an organization. A fairly simple one that we see all the time is, let's say you have a really awesome piece of marketing strategy, but when it comes to the execution of that strategy, you start to run into creative roadblocks, you start to run into delays in your campaign process because of some external dependencies.
So when it comes to optimizing your CRM teams, technology is only part of the equation. The way we engage our teams can also be through tech, but also to drive success and build and go past the roadblocks that we may have. So let's break down three common challenges that we also see from a people and culture point of view. There's an over-reliance on tech. We depend quite a lot on automation, and there's going to be less human insight into that as well. And what happens is that we start to be reactive rather than strategizing. Think about automated emails going out, but to duplicated or outdated lists. It's not engagement, that's just noise. So the key is ensuring CRM teams can stay at the helm, making strategic decisions, and how to utilize and optimize tech to make a bigger impact for the customer. Next, we have investment without strategy. Many organizations would pour money into technology, but expecting transformational results immediately. Without a clear strategy, the performance is going to fall. A common example, CRM efforts that actually don't improve any personalization at scale. So to fix this, let's lead with an insight-driven strategy and use that to think about how we can then invest better. And finally, the resistance to change. CRM teams have to work around legacy systems, data silos, manual processes. It leads to inefficiencies and potentially missed opportunities. The solution, well, you can foster a collaboration and continuous learning option, making sure that teams are being upskilled in a relevant way in both data and tech, and use this to drive decisions more faster and more smarter. So upon uncovering some of these common challenges, let's go into some thoughts around some frameworks that could help over here as well.
So yesterday in one of the roundtables, we talked about operating in a VUCA environment. So VUCA stands for volatility, high uncertainty, high risk, where the outcomes of decisions can be very difficult to predict. So a lot of ambiguities as well, right? So how do we future-proof organizations in this type of environment, and how do we build organizations and teams that can actually rise to the challenges that this will bring? So imagine we're building our house of CRM. This house needs to rest on a solid foundation of 3 pillars. Number one, we need to talk about alignment with business objectives. So this is tracking back to the point that I made earlier. It's really about having a clearly defined set of objectives and priorities and well-articulated KPIs that's going to measure the outcome of those priorities. And all the activities within an organization across all the teams need to align to that. And the second pillar here is really about cross-functional collaboration, something that is so obvious, but it's easier said than done. But when you think about what we have been talking about in terms of the positionless marketer, that really is the embodiment of what a truly cross-functional organization can look like. Because here you have an individual whose skill sets are multidisciplinary and multidimensional. And when provided with the right tools and resources, this person can actually function in the different positions within a marketing team. So by doing that, we're able to then break down that assembly line of the step-by-step in our process that in a lot of ways contribute to organization silos in the first place. The third pillar here is about agile operating models. So this is really speaking to the fact that we need to be adapting and evolving as the marketing landscape and the technological landscape is changing. So upon these 3 pillars, we also have 6 key building blocks to think about. First of all, we need to think about our capabilities and our talent. Do we have critical gaps on the team right now in those aspects? And if we do, then we need to think about, do we want to build these capabilities internally or acquire them externally? Same thing with talent, right? Do we want to upskill our teams and level up their skill sets within the organization? Or do we really need to think about building a pipeline so that we can hire these talents from outside? And then we need to think about our structure and processes. So this is about having a really good understanding of the current workload distribution across the organization, really looking at our end-to-end process and identifying where are those external dependencies that's causing bottlenecks. It's also about looking at the way we've defined roles and responsibilities across our teams, where there may be overlaps that's leading to inefficiencies. So technology, of course, is a really key piece here. If we're thinking about acquiring new technology to add to our current ecosystem, there needs to be a strategy behind that investment that's going to provide clear direction for how that new tech is going to be integrated into the existing tech stack, and how, as a team, we're going to operationalize it in order to maximize the return on that investment. And the last piece here, but equally important, is we need to talk about culture, right? And we're not just speaking of like building a culture of people who are data-driven, because we all know that that's a given. So we're really talking about either coaching our existing teams or hiring for people into the organization who have an open mindset, who are able to look at the possibilities that's being brought by advancements in technology like AI through a lens of potential, rather than looking at it through a lens of fear and resistance. So if all of that sounds a little bit overwhelming, and you're sitting here asking yourself, how do I even get started, right? I think any good therapist would tell you the start to change is really taking an honest and deep look at yourself through true self-reflection. So that's what we're gonna do. We start with a self-assessment. So this is an exercise where first we are mapping our end-to-end process, what we like to call ideation to execution, to really get an understanding of how teams are currently set up, where are those points that are interconnected, and where are those points that are disjointed. And then we also need to collect feedback from our internal stakeholders. A number of different research techniques can be employed to do this. We can either do it through internal interviews with different team leads, or we can create some type of a survey that can be distributed across the organization. Once all of that information is in place, we would then be able to develop insights that can tell us, does the current operating model and the structure of the organization actually meet the business needs? Now, if the answer to that question is yes, then that's fantastic. So then you just need to think about, how do we continue to optimize our workflow? How do we introduce even more efficiencies into our systems? And how do we continue to upscale our teams? But if the answer to that question is no, it doesn't meet the current needs of the business, so then not only do we need to quickly identify where the gaps are, but it's also really important for us to identify what are those lower hanging fruits, things that we can start to tackle and address right away, that is going to lead to incremental change, because that's really going to help us make an informed decision about if a full-scaled org redesign effort is truly necessary.
So when structuring CRM teams, one size does not fit all. The way that we organize impacts efficiency, customer experience, the agility. So let's break down some common models that we can see. There's a centralized model. Basically here we have a central team, a single core team that sets the strategy, owns the marketing tech stack, and controls execution across all markets. It ensures consistency, alignment, but also it has a tight control over the processes as well. Think of a global CRM team managing all their customer communications, segmentation, campaign execution, all from one place. The benefit? Well, it's a unified data-driven approach. The challenge, it can lack flexibility for regional needs. So we move on to the hybrid model next. Basically, this is going to balance the centralized strategy with local execution. A central team will provide the direction, the guidelines, and the regional teams or the local teams will adapt them to their markets. It allows for flexibility. Teams can move quickly, they tailor their strategies to local customer needs. The key here is strong communication. It's going to help to avoid misinterpretation and ensure cohesion as well. Finally, we've got the distributed model. This is where teams often operate independently across regions or business units. Each team has their own CRM activities. They make their own decisions based on the local market dynamics as well. The setup maximizes the agility. It helps to drive innovation as well. But there's challenges as well. There's data silos, there's duplicated efforts, and potentially disconnected efficiencies as well. So let's try to think about how we can bring this into life with a couple of examples. We're not going to be having the solution here, but we're having some examples to share that's going to bring it to life for you right now. So what we've got over here is a CRM team and a data and operations team working separately. Each has the skills needed to drive their strategies. The challenge is communication. Data issues directly impact CRM execution, and resolving them can take a lot of time and actually back and forth to make sure there's alignment. One way to increase the impact is to introduce a leader, overseeing both functions. It creates a single stakeholder to surface roadblocks, also ensure smooth execution. But beyond the structure and the technology can also bridge the gap as well. We're going to empower CRM teams to execute and build content while embedding operations specialists that help streamline the data process as well. Now, on paper, this may look like a number of different heads or teams. However, you can make this positionless. For example, the new customer reactivation CRM teams could also be leaning in to drive the content and execution as well, or vice versa. Another example that we can have is a way of working through a center of excellence. So imagine a mission control center. It's where intelligence flows in, decisions are made, and teams are executing with precision as well. It's basically how CRM teams can work really strongly, but also at the same time, different work streams like operations, data, and tech can also work as well. Without having scattered teams raising duplicate tickets or drowning in emails, what we're doing is establishing a command and control center. It's basically a single hub where work streams can actually prioritize, connect their challenges, and drive insights as well. The centralized approach allows us to identify patterns, prevent overlap, and prioritize effectively as well. So Optimove and the partners can actually think about sharing these solutions back and then using that to drive efficiencies to reduce the chaos, thinking about CRM teams and how they operate at peak performances, just like a high commanding, functioning center of excellence and command and control center.
So now, even with these frameworks and examples we've just given, we also know that just the change management process itself can be very challenging. But the good news is there's a model for that as well. So John Kotter was a Harvard Business School professor and one of the top thinkers on the topics of change and leadership. And he developed an 8-step model to help organizations achieve transformational success. So the first stage to create a successful transformation is to basically create an environment, right, for change. So in this, at this stage, we need to really articulate a sense of urgency to really kind of help the organization understand why change needs to happen right here, right now for our company. And then we need to put a powerful collision in place. So we're talking about senior leadership sponsorship, right? This is usually leaders in the organization who will be able to articulate the vision for the entire organization, and they're going to say it over and over until the message actually sticks. So after that, we need to think about how we empower action and how we engage the whole organization. Sometimes this involves assigning clear roles and responsibilities and ownership to individuals and to teams so that they can take the initiatives and the work streams that are part of this change process and drive them forward. At the same time, of course, we need to provide them with the right tools and resources in able to do so. We talked about the importance of identifying lower-hanging fruits earlier, and so this is also very important because by generating these quick wins at the onset of a transformation process, we will be able to build momentum. We will also be able to quickly gauge what types of impact and to what degree are those impact on the organization. So then we will be able to communicate those early success stories to get people really excited and have stronger buy-in into the process. We will also be able to take the early success cases and think about ways to roll them out on a wider scale throughout the organization. So now with all of that said, this brings us to the second question of the day for you. With everything we've just talked about, do you feel confident enough to tackle changes that can lead to incremental impact for your organization?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of thoughts, processes to take in. Do we click again?
Let's see.
It's good reflection on the presentation so far. I think we're good, Sophie.
Interesting. So it looks like most of us feel fairly confident, which is great. I love the level of confidence in this room. But we're going to make it a little bit more challenging because there's something that we haven't yet talked about, which is technological advancements and the impact that can have on the role of the CRM team moving into the future.
So let's start with a show of hands. Everyone who has used ChatGPT in the last 7 days, raise your hand. It's pretty much 90+% of the room. So I did the same question at a moderated event last year, where we've got business leaders, consultants, entrepreneurs that were actually talking about are marketers really optimizing technology as their best new co-worker. And the similar kind of poll that we had there in the ChatGPT is very, like 90%, 80-90% was raised hands as well. We know that AI and tech is becoming much more relevant in what we're doing now as well. And at that event, some of the key points that were raised around this technology is the fact that there is a rise in the positionless marketer. We've seen that across today and yesterday, as well as the conversations that we've had around the rooms as well. It's about trying to drive efficiencies where possible. But the impact of AI is actually going to benefit us, but also be having to be driven by human interaction as well. We need to be guided, or guiding the technology, that is. And in order to do so, similar to what Nick Barrington said yesterday, whilst technology might be there, that might just be 20%. 80% still needs to be adhered to by driving forces, strategizing, thinking outside of what maybe a technology advancement can help with as well. So with that being said, Sophie, why don't you share some predictions and thoughts of what's going to be happening?
Yep. So when we think about unlocking the upside of tech, we are really talking about how do we capitalize on human and tech synergy, right? And I think everyone in this room probably agrees that AI-driven solutions is going to become ever more prevalent. So that's going to help us do things like streamline our data collection process, getting us more deeper insights on our customers, allowing us to do more hyper-personalization by creating more granular levels of segments. But it's really important for us to still recognize the application of human creativity that is so important to crafting compelling stories and narratives that are going to be targeted towards those segments, right? Similarly, we know that things like dynamic content generation, prediction models are going to allow us to do more interactions in real time, execute on more campaigns that are trigger-based. On the flip side of that, customers are going to expect an enhanced experience from their interactions with brands. So as much as AI is able to allow us to do real-time interaction, you still need human to bring that emotional intelligence and that understanding of cultural context in order to make sure that those interactions are actually relevant and driving value for the customer. So what this means is that bring it back full circle to the whole idea of customer-centric. To truly deliver on the promise of an enhanced experience for the customer, as CRM marketers, we need to think beyond being just a marketer. We need to think about ourselves as orchestrators of that customer experience. So we're talking about taking a design approach to how we actually craft strategies and implement campaigns to deliver that end-to-end customer journey across multiple touch points. And that requires human oversight too. Because as much as AI is able to tell us perhaps the optimal timing and touch points where we're meeting our customers, you need a person to ensure that all of these interactions that are happening on all of these different channels are actually cohesive, consistent, and aligning with your brand identity. Last but not least, we talked a lot about breaking down silos, integrating teams across different functions. So this means that we need to also put in governance and processes that are helping to promote things like transparency, foster accountability throughout the org, and ultimately create a stronger sense of trust with our customers. And all of those things still remain human activities and responsibilities. So to bring it all together, We covered a lot of ground today. We've given you some examples of common challenges that we see that CRM orgs face on a day-to-day basis. We've given you some frameworks and examples to think about how to approach a org redesign effort, as well as how to manage that transformation process itself. Last but not least, we touched upon the synergy between human and tech and how that can possibly impact the evolution of CRM teams in the future. So hopefully, some of these points that we covered today resonated with you and provided some food for thought. And we welcome any further thoughts, questions, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. If there are any more questions, we can go to Optimove Zone and meet us there, or have conversations following that, as well as rating on the app as well. Thank you again for your time.